Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshunamanitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Yam Pravajantam Anupeta Apeta Krityam Apayano Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putreti Tanmataya Taravo Benedus Tam Savabhutam Hridayam Munimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Bhaktya Vihina Parada Lakshay Kiptastra Kamari Tarangamadye Kripa Maitam Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde Namaste Charanada Vindam Tave Vasmi Najivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tam Nayanam Charanandike Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So, we are going to begin by offering our most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of our beloved Gurus, unto Sri Guru Pada Padma Nityalita Bhavishta, Om Vishnupad Asto Tatsat Sri Simad Abhay Charnaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada, and Sri Guru Pada Padma Nityalita Bhavishta, Om Vishnupad Asto Tatsat Sri Simad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, under our exalted Rupanuga Varga, all the assembled Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. Okay. So, we are coming nearer to the time of the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We have been reading from Sri Chaitanya Caritamrta, Chaitanya Bhagavat, about Advaitacharya, Nityananda Prabhu, and of course their interaction with Mahaprabhu. You can't read about them without reading about Mahaprabhu. It's all interdependent, right? But now we're going to focus on Chaitanya Caritamrta. Now, of course, it's so vast. What can you cover in a week or 2 weeks, right? Not a lot. And if you add purports, all you can do is a few verses. So what I'm going to do is sometimes I'm going to read purports, and sometimes I'm going to glance at them and pull what we want to just point out that Srila Prabhupada's speaking. Because his purports, remember, they are for the entire spectrum of people, from very beginners to advanced devotees. And it's very interesting to see what he chooses to say, because his purports, they're eternal, but they're also written within a particular historical context, as are Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada's, mentioning contemporary persons of the time, contemporary arguments and challenges, right? So Srila Prabhupada's are like that too, and these were written in the early 1970s, right? When his Krishna consciousness movement was just beginning, and all the different successes, but also the obstacles that they were facing, and the interaction and response of the public. All of that is woven into his purports. So, and also Krishna's Kaviraj, he is speaking over and over. He says that the Chaitanya Bhagavat had already been written, and so much of the biography and pastimes of Mahaprabhu had already been written. So he said, those pastimes that Vrindavan Das Thakur has written extensively about, I'm just going to mention briefly. And some pastimes Vrindavan Das Thakur did not mention in any detail or at all, and so he may bring up something more. But I'm going to go to the chapter 17 which is, earlier than this, the phases of Mahaprabhu's growth and pastimes. His birth is given, then his very young childhood pastimes, then his slightly older, but these are the pastimes of his youth, right? Which are basically from the time he's about 16. Apparently, this is about the time that he went to Gaya and then came back completely transformed into a devotee. Of course, he's always a devotee, but he's showing it and manifesting it and now teaching, right? So, we'll start out with first verse. Bande swara bhuteham tam chaitanyam yat prasadata yavana sumanayante Krishna nama prajalpaka. Let me offer my respectful obeisance to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by whose mercy even unclean yavanas become perfectly well-bred gentlemen by chanting the holy name of the Lord. Such is the power of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Srila Prabhupada mentions in his purport about the misunderstanding between caste brahmanas and Vaishnavas, those who are completely limited in their understanding of spiritual life by dependence or feeling the necessity for progress through the stages of varnashram. Right? Only brahmanas can practice on the highest level, and you have to be born as a brahmana. And this argument has been going on since the beginning of time, but specifically very much so during the time of Mahaprabhu. Right? And he says Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself. He created varnashram. Varnashram chaturvarnya maya srishtam guna karma vibhagasaha. He says, I created this varnashram system. So he is completely independent, and if he wants to convert a yavana, an unclean person, into a Vaishnava, who can oppose the will of the Lord? So in the Kali Yuga, he has come in the form of his name to purify all, because everyone, Kalo Shudra Sambhava, at best, everyone in the Kali Yuga is a Sudra. And obviously, most are Yavanas, Mlechas, all over the world, intoxication and meat eating. Very small pockets of people adhering at all to Varnashram principles. And even they are Shudra, because the Brahmanas have become, the intellectual class have become workers, right? IT workers, computer programmers, working for big corporations. If you work for somebody, you're a Shudra. Some have their own companies, so maybe they've become Vaishyas. But Brahmanas, mostly they have all become salary people in this age, dependent and not practicing the renunciation, detachment, principles of teaching, compassion, and others that qualify one as a Brahmana. But he's saying even an unclean person, and then he mentions his Krishna consciousness movement and practically seeing, just after a few years of chanting Hare Krishna, how these completely unqualified Westerners have become very nice Vaishnavas and are now being accepted even in India very nicely. This is what he's saying. And that the religionists of the West are quite surprised that people of different religious backgrounds and previously not even interested in religion, people raised as Jews and Christians, are now flocking to the Krishna consciousness movement. He said people are expressing astonishment. And we take great pride in the transcendental behavior of our students. Srila Prabhupada is very proud. And he says such wonderful activities are possible, however, only by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They are not ordinary or mundane. He doesn't take any credit. He's only the messenger, he feels, right? Mahaprabhu is doing it all. So, let me offer my respectful obeisance to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by whose mercy even unclean yavanas become perfectly well-bred gentlemen by chanting the holy name of the Lord. Such is the power of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Understand the power of that holy name. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktavinda. All glories to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to Lord Nityananda Prabhu. All glories to Advaita Acharya. And all glories to all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya. He's not just glorifying the topmost, but all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya, who he reveres and honors. Kaisora Lilara Sutra Korila Ganan Yauvana Lilara Sutra Kori Anukram. I have already given a synopsis of the Kaisora Lila of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now let me enumerate his youthful pastimes in chronological order. Right, Kaishora is a little younger. Yovana, right, ever youthful, that's, teenage years. And this Anukram, Kram means the proper sequence, right? Vidya Sondaya Sadvesha Sambhoga Nitya Kirtana Prema Nama Pradanaischa Goda Ditati Yovane. Exhibiting his scholarship, beauty, and fine dress, Lord Chaitanya danced and chanted as he distributed the holy name of the Lord to awaken dormant love of Krishna. Thus, Lord Sri Gaurasundar shone in his youthful pastimes. So he's already established himself as the topmost scholar, right? Which had a role, right? There was a purpose in that, because then he's going to abandon the pursuit of mundane scholarship, even though he had ascended to the highest levels, in exchange for the simple process, apparently simple process of bhakti, right? Taking the greatest pleasure in that, rejecting the dry pursuit of logic and argument and grammar and all of that. And so, but he had already established his fame. He was known as beautiful, very nicely dressed, but now he's become a devotee. Yovana praveshe angera angavibhushan divya vashtra divya vesha balya chandana. As he entered his youth, the Lord decorated himself with ornaments, dressed himself in fine cloth, garlanded himself with flowers, and smeared himself with sandalwood. Because he's the beautiful Lord, but also by doing this, by making himself so even more attractive, he's attracting the minds and hearts of the people of Navadvip. Even those who are not inclined towards devotion, they're inclined towards him, his beauty, his knowledge, all his qualities, right? So, Krishna in Vrindavan, he always wants to appear very nicely. Why? To attract the minds and hearts of the gopis and give them pleasure and let them know, yes, he wants to be with them. He has attraction for them. Right? And then they take great joy in that, knowing that he wants their seva. Vidyara audatte kahona kore ganan sakala pandita jini kore adyapan. By dint of pride in his education, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, not caring for anyone else, defeated all kinds of learned scholars while executing his studies. Vayu Vyadi Chale Koila Prema Parakash Bhakta Gana Lanya Koila Vivida Vilas. In his youth, the Lord exhibited his ecstatic love of Krishna on the plea of disturbances of the bodily airs. Accompanied by his confidential devotees, he enjoyed various pastimes in this way. Srila Prabhupada gives a brief description of the Ayurvedic paradigm or model of the body and its functions. Functions of mucus, bile, and air circulating in the body, and describes 59 kinds of diseases that might occur by the irregular movement of these life airs, and he says one such disease is craziness. So Mahaprabhu would sometimes act as if crazy, he says. And then in his school, he begins to explain the grammar of verbs through the vision of Krishna consciousness. Everything in grammar in relationship to Krishna, Srila Prabhupada is saying. And then he's pulling his students away from worldly education. Right? These students, actually, in the Chaitanya Bhagavad, it's described that they were his associates in Braj. Some were new. Some of these students were coming from distant places. Some from East Bengal, right, after his travels there. Others that had grown up with him, these were his associates in Braj, many cowherd boys, some gopis. So he began that kind of teaching after he had come back infused with devotional sentiments after initiation, or actually revealing. But still, he's keeping them somewhat hidden under the guise of, there's two stages. Before he was showing his devotion at all, he would show signs of epilepsy and craziness, and nobody could understand. They think it was the life airs. After he was a devotee, he continued to show that. Nobody knew what was going on. And Srivas Pandit came, and Mother Shachi said, "Oh, my son, he's appearing to be crazy." And Srivas Pandit went to Mahaprabhu and said, "Oh, I wish I had these symptoms of craziness. This is very good." He understood that these were symptoms of devotion, right? Sadvika and anubhavs of his incredible prem. So, Tabeta Korila Prabhu Gayate Gaman Ishvara Purira Sange Tatai Milan. Thereafter, the Lord went to Gaya. There he met Ishvara Puri. Okay, so now he's giving this, from this point on, this is, from here on, it will be devotional. Up until this point, it was all hidden, disguised. And Srila Prabhupada describes how Mahaprabhu went to Gaya to do the Pindadan, offering oblations to the forefathers in Vedic society after the death of a relative, especially a parent. You go to do that. And these oblations are for the benefit of the deceased relative. Of course, Mahaprabhu's relatives don't need this. Actually, Vaishnava relatives don't need this. But sometimes we do them anyway. So there, he says, he met Ishwar Puri. Diksha anantare hoila premara prakash, deshe agamana puna premara vilas. In Gaya, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was initiated by Ishwar Puri, and immediately afterwards he exhibited signs of love of Godhead. He again displayed such symptoms after returning home. It's said, Srila Prabhupada says that he went to Gaya, and he was also accompanied by many of his disciples, students. He became sick on the way. He had such a high fever that his students, he asked them to bring water that had washed the feet of brahmanas, and he drank it and was cured. Prabhupada said, therefore, he's teaching us we should always respect the position of brahmanas. Mahaprabhu was always respectful. He never offered any disrespect to brahmanas, nor his followers. He says, but preachers of Lord Chaitanya's cult object if someone presents himself as a brahmana without having the necessary qualification. The followers of Lord Chaitanya cannot blindly accept that everyone born in a brahmana family is a brahmana. So we should not indiscriminately follow the Lord's example by showing respect to brahmanas by drinking water that's washed their feet. Brahmanas' families have become degraded because of the contamination of Kali Yuga. So they misguide people by exploiting their sentiments. So Srila Prabhupada's making the statement very early that we don't just follow rules and regulations, scriptural injunction, blindly. We apply it appropriately. Yes, you respect brahmanas, but who is a brahmana? We respect all the orders appropriately, right? Shudra, Vaishya, Kshatriya, Brahmana. They have their different ways in which they interact and serve each other. But in all cases, and Vaishnavas, Kanishta, Madhyam, Uttam, you have to actually know the real position of somebody to offer respect to a Kanishta, a beginner Vaishnava, one who's not come into even Madhyam or pure chanting of the holy name, to treat them like a Mahabhagavat or to treat a Madhyam like a Mahabhagavat, can be detrimental to one's bhakti. You have to know who's who and offer respect appropriately. Right? Otherwise, it's bad for them and it's bad for you. Shachike prema dana tabe advaita milan advaita paila vishwarupa darashan. Thereafter, the Lord delivered love of Krishna to his mother, Shachi Devi, nullifying her offense at the feet of Advaitacharya. Thus, there was a meeting with Advaitacharya, who later had a vision of the Lord's universal form. We heard these pastimes earlier when we were talking about Advaita and talking about Mahaprabhu's Mahaprakash manifesting his form to all of his devotees, all these different avatars and incarnations, and how Mother Shachi, he wouldn't grant it to her because she had bad feelings towards Advaita. She'd not committed any verbal offense outwardly, but she was angry at Advaita because she felt that he had been the cause of her dear Vishwarup leaving home and taking sannyas. So she had some thoughts. And Mahaprabhu told her, I'm not going to give you my mercy until you beg forgiveness from Advaita and nullify that offense, which she went, and Advaita was so aghast. He said, you're the mother of the universe. You're the mother of the Lord himself. I offer obeisance to you. You could never commit offense. But anyway, Mahaprabhu used this as an example. His mother could never commit offense, but he used any feelings she had about her son were based on pure prema. So it's of a different caliber. So these are all little sutras about these pastimes. Srivas Thakur then worshipped Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by the process of Abhishek. Sitting on a cot, the Lord exhibited transcendental opulence. We just read that. Nityananda had been instructed to perform the Abhishek to Vedavyas, and wait, which one is this? Oh, no, this is during the Mahaprakash. It's a different time. After this function at the house of Srivas Thakur, Nityananda Prabhu appeared, and when he met with Lord Chaitanya, he got the opportunity to see him in his six-armed form, which we just read, right? And then he fainted, and then he offered so many beautiful prayers, right? So, one day, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited to Lord Nityananda Prabhu a six-armed form, bearing a conch shell, disc, club, lotus flower, bow, and flute. This is a different description than we heard, different six-armed form. That one had a plow and a stick, remember? But this one has a bow and flute. And there's a picture of this in the book. So it's representing Lord Narayan and Lord Ram, right? Six-armed form. And Krishna with the flute. So, thereafter the Lord showed him his four-armed form, standing in a three-curved posture. With two hands he played upon a flute, and in the other two he carried a conch shell and disc. Conch shell and disc are generally associated with Lord Narayan, or Dwarkadish Krishna also. That's four-armed form sometimes. But he's showing, I am Krishna, I am also all these other incarnations. And finally, the Lord showed Nityananda Prabhu his two-armed form of Krishna, the son of Maharaj Nanda, simply playing on his flute, his bluish body dressed in yellow garments. And Srila Prabhupada indicates that this is described more elaborately in the Chaitanya Mangala, right? Another book. Who's that by? Was that by Lochandas? Lokanath? I can't remember who wrote. It's one of them. Anyway, Tabe Nityananda Goshanira Vyasa Pujan Nityananda Veshe Kaila Mushala Dharana. Nityananda Prabhu then arranged to offer Vyasa Puja, or worship of the spiritual master, to Lord Sri Gaur Sundar, but Lord Chaitanya carried the plow-like weapon called Mushala in the ecstasy of being Nityananda Prabhu. So I was just thinking about this, actually, that many, many times when Mahaprabhu is showing himself to Lord Nityananda, he shows himself in the mood of Baladev or Lakshman, right? He's showing these moods. Now, there's no difference between Balaram and Krishna, Lakshman and Baladev, Lakshman and Ram, but there's a difference in mood. And that by showing himself and by being absorbed in the mood of Baladev, he's simultaneously showing himself as the Supreme Lord, but also imbued with the mood of service, because Mahaprabhu wants to taste all the moods of his devotees, right? And the moods of devotion are originally manifest in Nityananda Prabhu, Baladev Prabhu himself. And he is the creator of all living entities in the spiritual realm, except for Radhika's own Kaya Vyuha. All the devotees in the other moods are being created by the Sandini Shakti, Lord Balaram in Vrindavan, in Dwarka, another by Sankarshan, another group. In the Vaikuntha realm, all the jivas there, again by Mahasankarshan. And in the material world, all the jivas that are conditioned here, created by Mahavishnu, all expansions of Lord Balaram. So, by assuming these forms, he's also tasting the devotional sentiments of his own expansions, his own Vishnu Tattva expansions. So he comes to taste the moods of Radhika and her associates. That's described in the Rath Yatra pastime nicely. And he's also tasting the devotion of the different kinds of devotees, represented by Srivas Thakur, and he's tasting the moods of the various incarnations represented by Nityananda and Advaita. So, thereafter, Mother Shachi Devi saw the brothers Krishna and Balaram in their manifestation of Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda. Then the Lord delivered the two brothers, Jagai and Madhai. We just read that also. She was making an offering of prasad, and then all of a sudden, Nityananda and Chaitanya appeared like two little boys, like Krishna and Balaram. Right? So, then Jagai and Madhai we had read earlier, right? And that was the manifestation of this extraordinary pastime of delivering not just the most fallen, but the most opposed, the most sinful, but very directly opposed to any teachings or any association with sadhus. These were the most fallen persons, and yet Nityananda gave them his mercy. After this incident, the Lord remained in an ecstatic position for 21 hours, and all the devotees saw his specific pastimes, right? This is 7 praharas, 21 hours. So it's, what is it? Sapta Prahara Mahaprakash, I think that's what it was called, where he took the opportunity, Srila Prabhupada says, to show the devotees that he is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, who is the source of all the other incarnations. And he showed all these different incarnations because among all of his associates were devotees of these different incarnations. So as he called that particular devotee and spoke their glories, he also showed himself in the form that they most worshipped. And everyone could say that. Oh, Satta Praharya Bhav. the ecstasy of 21 hours. Satta Praharya Bhav. And others call that the Mahabhav Prakash or Mahaprakash. Satta Praharya Bhav. Yes, Chaitanya Bhagavad Madhya Kanda, chapter 9. Yeah. And there also, the maidservant of Srivas, Duki, was given this prem because she was the maidservant of Srivas Thakur's house. And she became Sukhi. Duki means unhappy. Sukhi means very happy. Kolavecha Sridhar, unknown to all the devotees, but so dear to Mahaprabhu. A very special cowherd boy in Vrindavan. And I think a cowherd boy. I think a cowherd boy. Yeah. And then Murari Gupta, so many are described. One day, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt the ecstasy of the boar incarnation and got up on the shoulders of Murari Gupta. Thus, they both danced in Murari Gupta's courtyard. Right. That was described. They was at the house of Murari Gupta, and all of a sudden he's calling out. Srila Prabhupada says, Shukar! Shukar means, boar. And then he assumed the form of the boar incarnation, not just the mood, the very form, and climbed on the shoulders of Murari Gupta. He had a small water pot with a nozzle that he symbolically picked up as the earth from the depths of the ocean, right? So not the gigantic boar form, but a form large enough that he could climb on his shoulders, and he also had a water pot in his snout. He was in that mood. After this incident, the Lord ate raw rice given by Shuklambar Brahmachari and explained very elaborately the import of the Harinam shloka mentioned in the Brihan Naradiya Purana. Right. Shuklambar Brahmachari had many pastimes with Mahaprabhu. There was another pastime where he was asked to cook for Mahaprabhu, and he told the devotees, I don't know how to cook. I don't know. How can I do this? And they said, just cook. And he did just cook, but he was inspired and he did very wonderfully. But in this case, Srila Prabhupada says that Mahaprabhu was dancing in ecstasy, and he saw Shuklambar Brahmachari and had his begging bag containing rice, and he grabbed the bag and began to eat the rice, right? Because it was the rice of his devotee. Shuklambar Brahmachari was also the house that when he came back from Gaya, when he first came back, he saw some devotees at Srivas Thakur's place, and he explained some things, and he said, all of you come tomorrow to Shuklambar Brahmachari's house, and I will explain so much more of what is transpiring, right? So then they quote, Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam, kalo nasteva, 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 gatiranyata. In this age of Kali, there is no other means of self-realization than chanting the holy name, chanting the holy name, chanting the holy name of the Lord Hari. When I joined, there weren't a lot of printed books. There was Srila Prabhupada's old Bhagavatam, the original Bhagavatam, and that had some Sanskrit, but nobody had copies of that hardly. And then they were starting to do little second canto, few chapters at a time. And the Bhagavad Gita had no Sanskrit in it yet, just translation. So we didn't know any verses. But there were some verses that were taught and everybody knew. And this was the first verse everybody learned. Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam. We learned it because we did it on street Sankirtan, right? The Sankirtan leaders would, Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam, kalo nasteva, 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 gatiranyata. And then everyone else, 30, 40, 50 devotees, Harinama. That's how I learned the verse. And there are other verses that we chanted in Sankirtan like that. Maybe not the appropriate tune, but it was certainly powerful and ecstatic. No other way. And it was often quoted in classes. There was one sannyasi, one of the very few sannyasis in the early days. There's only 3 or 4 in America, and maybe only 2 in America by that time. Anyway, he wasn't a big chanter of shlokas, but he knew this one. This is the one he would always quote. So, Kali Namarupe Krishna Avatar, Nama Hoite Hoya Sarva Jagat Nishtar. In this age of Kali, the holy name of the Lord, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, is the incarnation of Lord Krishna. Simply by chanting the holy name, one associates with the Lord directly. Anyone who does this is certainly delivered. So this is a commentary on that Harinama verse. And again, what's he saying? In the age of Kali, Namarupe, this form of the holy name, Krishna avatar. It's literally the incarnation of Krishna. Nama Hoite Hoya, from this holy name becomes Sarva, all, Jagat of the world, Nishtar, deliverance. The Lord himself is incarnating in this name. Have no doubt. Simply by chanting the holy name, one associates with the Lord directly. That's why you have to pay attention to the offenses, because if we're not convinced that this is Krishna directly, then we're inattentive, we're distracted, we're thinking of so many things. We have mixed ideas, maybe lack of faith that causes us to have inappropriate beliefs of the holy name, so many things going on. But the more we hear this kind of thing and try to remember it while we're chanting, then it begins to really take shape. So he begins to explain this verse, this Harinam verse. Dardya lagi Harinam ukti tinavar jadad loka bujaite puna evakar. This verse repeats the word eva, which means certainly, 3 times for emphasis. And it also 3 times repeats Harinam, the holy name of the Lord, just to make people understand. So, Srila Prabhupada indicates that this is the practice. If you repeat something 3 times, especially in Vedic literature, it means you must, you must, you must. It's true, it's true, it's true. See, so that verse from the Brihadaranyaka Purana, Harinam, Harinam, Harinam Eva Kevalam, it's 3 times, right? And then he goes on to say, therefore, our request to all our students is that they daily chant at least 16 rounds of this Harinam Mahamantra offenselessly, following the regulative principles. He says at least. He doesn't say that's it. There's always, when Srila Narayan Maharaj came to encourage people to chant more rounds, as Srila Prabhupada did repeatedly, but especially in the early years, he was calling for more, but gradually, well, then let them serve. But at least 16 rounds. Then their success will be assured without a doubt. Kevala Shabde Punarapi Nishtaya Karan Jnana Joga Tappa Karma Adi Nivaran. The use of the word Kevala only prohibits all other processes, such as the cultivation of knowledge, practice of mystic yoga, or performance of austerities and fruitive activities. Right? Like Dharmak Projita Kaitavo, Ta Paramo, Namatsaranam Satam. Only, pure bhakti, unmixed. Our Krishna consciousness movement stresses the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra only, whereas those who do not know the secret of success for this age of Kali unnecessarily indulge in the cultivation of knowledge, the practice of mystic yoga, or the performance of fruitive activities or useless austerities. So these are actually limbs of Varnashram, many of them, right? Says you don't need any of that. they are simply wasting their time and misleading their followers. Right? These things that are called Mishra Bhakti, Jnana Mishra, Karma Mishra, Aropsiddha Bhakti, doing these external rituals when actually all you have to do is bhakti. When we point this out very plainly to an audience, members of opposing groups become angry at us. He says, but it says, according to Shastra, we don't make any compromise with these so-called jnanis, yogis, karmis, and tapasvis. When they say they are as good as we are, we must say that only we are good and that they are not good. It's not making any moral compromise out of politeness, you know, you're okay, I'm okay. No. If you want self-realization, there's a path. It's spoken, it's clear. We must not deviate from the injunctions of the Shastras. This is not our obstinacy, he says, it's the injunction of the Shastra. And he says this will be confirmed in the next verse. Anyata yemane tara nahi ka nishtar, nahi, tina evakar. In this verse clearly states that anyone who accepts any other path cannot be delivered. This is the reason for the triple repetition. Nothing else, nothing else, nothing else, which emphasizes the real process of self-realization. Why is he speaking all this? Because now he's going to be describing Mahaprabhu's mission and teachings, and the foundation of all of that is the chanting of the holy name. So he's very elaborately, systematically describing the Shastric information about the holy name and how this is the only way in the Kali Yuga by which we can practice and become advanced. And also Srila Narayan Raj used to sometimes emphasize something. He would say, never, never, and never. He would say, never, never, and never, right? 3 times. So, to chant the holy name always, one should be humbler than the grass in the street and devoid of all desire for personal honor. But one should offer others all respectful obeisance. Now he's repeating the instruction of Mahaprabhu, Tanada Pisuni Chenar, which is going to come in detail in the very end of this Chaitanya Caritamrta in Anchalila, where the Sikshastakam is stated. It goes on to say, a devotee engaged in chanting the holy name of the Lord should practice forbearance like that of a tree. Forbearance, means like tolerating, right? Even if rebuked or chastised, he should not say anything to others to retaliate. Right? Who cares? Just let it hit my back. For even if one cuts a tree, it never protests. And even if it is drying up and dying, it does not ask anyone for water. Srila Prabhupada quotes Taror Eva Sahishnuna, the practice of forbearance. He says, very difficult. But when one actually engages in chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, the quality of forbearance automatically develops. And that doesn't just mean against the slings and arrows of the criticism of others, but all the different kinds of outrageous fortune that come to us. You just have to tolerate, like when our pipes froze, when the heat goes out, they lost everything at the other house. Sometimes these happens. And these are happening to us to teach us that. I fear to speak about that from the platform of lecturing, because then I know it's going to fall on my head and I'm going to have to practice the very forbearance I'm lecturing others about. Always happens like that. Always happens. You must, and then, and then I shake my head and say, oh, I shouldn't have talked about forbearance in that proud way. Humility, tolerance, duty. Oh, I'm being taught that I don't have any of it. Anyway, but he's giving us this information, talking about the holy name, and then talking about what qualities we have to cultivate in order to chant properly. Ehi matta Vaishnava kare kichuna magiba aya chitta vritti kimva shakapala kaiva. Thus a Vaishnava should not ask anything from anyone else. If someone gives him something without being asked, he should accept it. But if nothing comes, a Vaishnava should be satisfied to eat whatever vegetables and fruits are easily available. Whatever comes most easily, right? But not going around asking on one's, like Madhavendra Puri. He never begged for anything, right? And he would just sit and chant wherever he was. And the Lord would inspire people in the heart to bring him some milk, some rotis, whatever it might be. Otherwise, he was completely unconcerned. This is the highest standard, highest standard. So one should strictly follow the principles of always chanting the holy name, and one should be satisfied with whatever he gets easily. Such devotional behavior solidly maintains one's devotional service. Rupa Goswami says, Atyahara prayasas cha, right? Don't over-endeavor, right, for things. Don't neglect scriptural rules and regulations, but don't over-endeavor also, right? Okay, so then he quotes the verse. Turnadapi suni chena toro iva sahishnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. One who thinks himself lower than the grass, who is more tolerant than a tree, and who does not expect personal honor, yet is always prepared to give all respects to others, can very easily always chant the holy name of the Lord. Now, Srila Prabhupada explains, the grass is specifically mentioned in this verse because everyone tramples upon it, yet the grass never protests. This example indicates that a spiritual master or leader should not be proud of his position, being always humbler than an ordinary common man. He should go on preaching the cult of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. So, I was just listening to the Prabhupada. This was a lecture, I believe, in 73 in LA. And he was talking about the order of his spiritual master and how he was trying to fulfill it. And he was remembering his guru and speaking in a very humble and choked mood. And then he spoke to his disciples and he said, I consider you to be representatives sent by my spiritual master to help me in this regard. In other words, he's not saying, I have done this by my power, I have done that by my preaching, none of that. He's saying, I've tried in my humble way to fulfill this order, and I am so grateful to you and to my guru because he has sent you to me. And then he says, so I thank you so much for helping me in this way. And his voice chokes. It chokes up. He feels so much depth of humility and gratitude, even to his own disciples. And a genuine mood. So, he says, raising my hands, I declare, everyone, please hear me. String this verse on the thread of the holy name and wear it on your neck for continuous remembrance. Purport. When chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, in the beginning one may commit many offenses, which are called Namabhas and Nam Aparad. In this stage, there is no possibility of achieving perfect love of Krishna by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Therefore, one must chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra according to the principles of the above verse. Turnad api sunichena, taro iva suhishnuna. One should note in this connection that chanting involves the activities of upper and lower lips as well as the tongue. All three must be engaged in chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. The word Hare Krishna should be very distinctly pronounced and heard. Sometimes one mechanically produces a hissing sound instead of chanting with proper pronunciation with the help of the lips and tongue. Like people that just, like that. No. Chanting is very simple, but one must practice it seriously. Therefore, the author of Sri Chaitanya Caritamrta, Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami, advises everyone to keep this verse always strung about his neck. So chanting the name with respect. If there's somebody that you know coming into the room, or you're introducing that person to others, you're not just going to slur their name. If you have deep affection, you're going to pronounce that name with care and appreciation. All right? So, then he says, one must strictly follow the principles given by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in this verse. If one simply follows in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya and the Goswamis, certainly he will achieve the ultimate goal of life, the lotus feet of Krishna. So this beginning chapter, this is like verse 33. These are all giving us what Mahaprabhu has come to give, what are the benefits of that, and how do we practice this properly. Tabe Prabhu Srivasera Grihe Nirantar Ratre Sankirtana Kaila Eka Samvatsara. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu regularly led congregational chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra in the house of Srivas Thakur every night for 1 full year. Wow. Okay. So we're going to stop there because he's going to continue giving synopsis of different pastimes. Some things are going to be more elaborate, but that's a good place to stop. So, offering our obeisance to our beloved gurus unto Sri Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Asto Tatsat Sri Simad Abhaya Charadavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, our Srila Prabhupada, and unto Sri Guru Pada Padma Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Asto Tatsat Sri Simad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, unto, of course, Krishna's Kaviraj, all the Vaishnavas, Vaishnavis, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.